It's 7:15 in the morning on moving day, and we've got boxes all over the place. And Taryn's back there cooking some eggs for us. And the movers are gonna show up in the next half hour. Hopefully we're ready, but we're moving into the farmhouse. And we are definitely gonna miss this view. It's been awesome living here on the lake for the last 3 years, but we are ready for the simpler life. We're moving into the 1853 fully rehab farmhouse. They were just putting the last coat of polyurethane on the floors yesterday, so hopefully that's dry by the time we show up, but ready or not, we're moving in. About 4.5 months ago, my wife and I bought and started rehabbing this 1853 farmhouse. And when I say we started rehabbing, what I mean is with the help of lots of contractors. And we moved in about 2 weeks ago, and you can go back and you can see the initial video that we shot the day after closing is actually right over there. Where are we sitting?
We're sitting in our soon-to-be master bedroom slash I'm in the bathroom, kind of.
Beautiful.
On the vanity.
In what used to be the master bedroom. You probably wouldn't recognize it in the video. We've taken down lots of walls, really opened up the space. We've done a massive rehab here. So I'm gonna go through some of the features of this rehab, how we were able to incorporate some of the historical features. But this house is really cool. Obviously, it's a very old house built during the Civil War area. It was one of the original houses to Valparaiso, Indiana, which we're in Northwest Indiana, just outside the Indiana Dunes, close to Lake Michigan. And we bought this property because it aligns so much better with our goals and our lifestyle. So we used to live on Lake Michigan. We had a beautiful view of the water, which, you know, there's aspects of that house that we're gonna miss. But what we realized is that that house didn't align with who we were, with what we were looking for. You know, it wasn't very kid friendly. We didn't have a yard. And what we wanted to do is come out to a place where the kids have more room. And then also my wife, who's an artist at heart, super talented. She loves antiques. This property is on 10 acres. It came with a pole barn. And so she's gonna turn the pole barn into her antique shop, and we can sell antiques out of there. And then I have a passion for rentals, obviously, especially short-term rentals, and creating that experience for people to come and stay. And so we're gonna have some tiny house type short-term rentals where people from the city, from Chicago or Detroit, which are driving distances away, they can come out and experience what it's like to stay on the farm. So we'll have animals, we'll grow some food, and the property is a fraction of what we were paying on the previous property. So it gets us so much closer to our financial freedom goals. And then also it aligns well with just what our goals are and what what we want our life to look like on a daily basis. So in this video, I'm gonna go through some of the features that we put into the property. We still have a lot of work to do here, but I wanted to show you the inside. So I'm gonna start with the kitchen area and the dining area. You can see we don't have a whole lot of furniture in here because we left our previous house staged because we're in the process of selling it. So we're gonna be moving over our furniture later on, but we've got a lot of unique touches in this property. My wife she designed everything, and her style is rustic chic. So she really wanted to incorporate a lot of antique type features. So you can see like the stove right here behind me. This is actually a brand new stove. It's kind of cool, but it's got all the features of a really old stove. And then when you look at like the refrigerator, she painted this refrigerator. So this is a cafe refrigerator. It was like a white counter depth refrigerator that we found that has a lot of cool features, but but then she wanted to make it super unique. So there's a lot of unique touches in this property. You can see our dishwasher. We actually took barnwood from the old 100-year-old barn that's on the property, and we put barnwood paneling on the dishwasher. So you're not going to really see a dishwasher like this anywhere else. We've got the farm style sink, which is really popular right now. We've got this faucet that you can actually talk to, but that's sort of a gimmick. I don't recommend spending the extra money on a faucet you can talk to. I don't think we're ever going to talk to it, but you can tell it to fill up a glass of water or whatever I guess a faucet does. But this is a kind of a cool feature that we decided to put in, and it's this brick wall. So these are actually bricks from Chicago, from where we're both originally from, and they're from an old building in Chicago. So we ordered these bricks, and initially we were going to put in a brick backsplash, but once we saw the backsplash, we thought this whole wall would be awesome to have bricks on. So we've got bricks that come all the way over to the edge of the kitchen, and then we took barnwood again and we wrapped our chimney hood, and we also created these butcher block shelving units out of the barnwood that was already on the property. So it saves us money, and then it's also cool to know that these materials are coming from the land and are super historical. Questions sometimes come up on projects like this as to how much can you keep and how much can you get rid of. And one thing that we decided to keep was all the windows in the spots where they were. So we have outside, we have cedar siding, which was actually in pretty good shape. We stained it all a dark blue and it turned out really awesome. So we didn't want to mess up the outside or the siding that's already existing, and so we decided to keep all the windows. But one thing was that these windows were super low, and so we decided to keep them, and obviously that interferes with cabinet space. But we decided to put these seats in that have storage underneath. We've got some drawers underneath, and these have actually been awesome. It's been a great feature. We thought it was going to be it could be a negative, but we've actually used these two seats quite a bit, especially not having furniture yet in our house. And so there's a lot of stuff like that sometimes you can spin it to be a positive when you think, this is something that we have to work with because it's an old house, but sometimes it works out really well. So a few other historical features that we worked in. So you can see these beams here. These are actually from the barn as well, that we have, the 100-year-old barn that was in rough shape, but we were able to get a lot of reclaimed barnwood from. And so we put these beams in. That was the ceiling height previously. Actually, it was a little bit lower than that previously, but we realized there was all this attic space that wasn't being used. So we totally opened up the ceilings and we put these beams in from the barn, which I think adds a cool touch. We also, this door my wife found in Chicago. It's obviously a very old door that we refinished. We found this newel post when we were on a trip to Tennessee a while back, and it was at this cool antique shop, and it was pulled out of a very old house as well, and so we're able to kind of match it. This door, actually our front door, was here. It was on the back door, and so we just sanded it down, and now all this wood kind of ties in together. We also installed this fireplace, and we used, again, that Chicago brick that we ordered, that we put on the wall on the other side, and then we've got, again, the barnwood from our old barn that we incorporated in as well. So we tried to incorporate as many of the old features as we could into this house, just to make it that much more unique and special for our family. So this house is about 1,800 square feet, and one thing that's really important in a house that's smaller and maybe a little more chopped up, or you don't have the luxury of having a blank palette to work with like you would in a brand new house, is that you really have to try to be as efficient as possible. And so one thing, I work from home a lot. I've got the podcast, I do a lot of videos, and so I wanted to have sort of an office nook studio. And so we incorporated this in, even though we didn't have a lot of space. It's really small. It's just big enough for my computer and my podcasting stuff, and then some shelving. And then we found this old ladder in New York from a guy who sells these antique ladders, and we were able to put some storage space up there. I've got my printer up there, and it's this cool rolling ladder that we've got in here. And so, you know, it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. This room, I double insulated the walls with double drywall and extra insulation, which you wouldn't normally put on interior walls, but it helps soundproof this. And then I've got some soundproofing to go over the door as well, because obviously this glass isn't super soundproof. But we tried to make every square inch as usable as possible. And then also, you know, one thing that we really like is having a little bit smaller house with more shared living space. So the kitchen and the living room is, you know, it's all combined, and as well as the dining room, so that the family can feel together. And that was something that we really wanted in this house. So finally, what are the numbers on this project, and what are some of the unique challenges that come up when you're rehabbing an 1853 house? I've rehabbed well over 100 projects at this point, and people ask me, you know, how do you come up with a rehab estimate? When you're looking at a rundown house, how do you know how much it's gonna cost you to rehab it? And one of the main pieces of advice that I give is look at the age of the house, because if it's a newer house, it's fairly straightforward. You know, you need to replace this, this, and this, and you can come up with the cost. If you're looking at a 100-year-old or older house, just multiply that rehab estimate by 2 or 3, because there's gonna be all kinds of unknowns. The problems and the things that you need to address just multiply, and they compound with age. So of course, we're gonna go out and buy an 1853 farmhouse. And some of the things that we're, you know, working with, and when you buy a house like this, like in the basement, our floor joists are actually timbers. Like they still have the bark on the tree. It's tree trunks that they cut down probably on the property, and they just use those in their raw form as floor joists, because when this house was built, you couldn't go to Home Depot and buy 2x6 or 2x8s or whatever floor joists that you need. You just cut down what you have on the land. And so there's been a few additions that have more newer features to them that were added on to this house, but the initial house has some very primitive features. And so, you know, there's extra costs that come up as a result of those things. Also, incorporating things like, you know, just this brick. We ordered it from an old building in Chicago. We got it in 2 shipments. They were done with what we got in the first shipment. They were waiting on the second shipment. That time costs you extra money. And incorporating so much barn wood, you have to go out to the barn and you've got to shave it down. You don't just buy a 2x4 from Home Depot. So there's a lot of extra time and cost that go into a rehab like this to get all of those details. But, you know, so from an investment standpoint, I would not recommend buying a property like this for an investment, because at the end, you're not going to have a whole lot of equity in it as a flip, which is your profit, or equity in it as a rental, which is, you know, your security. But for us, it made sense because it tied into that lifestyle, which revolves around some revenue generating activities that we can do here. So the property isn't just, the numbers don't just revolve around the property itself, but they revolve around the potential of what we can do. So having the antique shop, having the tiny houses. This is on 10 acres. We're buying the 35 acres that's right next to it this summer. We're closing on it, so we're gonna expand the rentals onto that land as well. This property, having all these unique features, it ties in with that type of lifestyle, with that type of feel. So we could actually rent this house out as part of our, you know, as a short-term rental as well. So if people want to come for a family reunion, they rent the tiny houses, they rent this house as well. It could generate income, and so some of these extra unique features will help give us a higher price point when we rent it out. So these are things you need to think about. So what did we buy this house for? If you're watching this in California, sit down, because I know you can't buy a shack for this price, but we actually bought the house with 10 acres and all the barns for $249,000. And it cost us about an extra $150,000 to rehab the whole thing, which, you know, if I was doing this project as a flip, I wouldn't have spent anywhere close to that. But because we wanted all these unique features in it and we're living here, we paid a little bit extra. So hopefully you've got something out of this video if you're thinking about doing this yourself. If you have, hit the like button. I'm gonna be doing a lot more videos around this property. This was just an interior video because we're doing so much more work outside right now. Once we get the shop further along, once we get the tiny houses we're starting to put the tiny houses up, I'll do some more videos out there. So if you want to check those videos out, hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when those videos are released. Also, you can join the Living Off Rentals Facebook group. It's an active group of a lot of rental property investors, and we talk about a lot of different rental property investing related topics there. So join that group. I hope to see you there, but if not, I'll see you in the next video.